Most men think connection happens through the right words. Say the right thing, ask the right question, tell the right story at the right moment. But here's what nobody talks about. The moments a woman actually feels connected to you, they almost never happen when you're trying to create them. Stay with me here, because what I'm about to share is going to sound simple at first, maybe even obvious. But by the end of this video, you're going to look back at conversations, relationships, moments you thought went well, and realize you were missing something the entire time. Something that was right in front of you. There's this idea most men carry around without even knowing it. This quiet belief that connection is something you build, like a structure, brick by brick, compliment by compliment, conversation by conversation. And that's not wrong exactly, but it's incomplete, because real connection, the kind that makes a woman think about you when you're not there, the kind that makes her genuinely want to be around you, that doesn't come from the building. It comes from something that happens inside the moments in between. We're going to get into exactly what that is, but first, I want to tell you about something that happened to a guy I know. We'll call him Daniel. Daniel was, by almost every measure, doing everything right. He was attentive, he listened, he remembered details, her sister's name, her favorite coffee order, the thing that happened at work 3 weeks ago that stressed her out. He asked good questions, he was present. And yet, she told him after about 4 months that she just didn't feel it, that something was missing. She couldn't explain what. She said he was great, she meant it, but she also meant the other thing. Daniel was confused, hurt, and honestly, a little angry, because he had tried. He had done what he thought he was supposed to do. What he didn't understand, and what most men in his position never figure out, is that she wasn't looking for effort. She was looking for something else entirely. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly what that was. Here's something worth sitting with for a second. Women are constantly reading the emotional temperature of a room. Not consciously most of the time. It's not like they're running some kind of analysis. It's more instinctive, automatic. Like how you don't think about balancing when you walk, it just happens. And what they're picking up on, more than your words, more than your plans, more than how good you look that evening, is how you feel about yourself in that moment. That's the part most men completely miss. You can say all the right things. You can be warm, engaged, funny even. But if somewhere underneath all that, you're quietly seeking her approval, waiting to see if she smiles, if she laughs, if she seems interested, she feels that. Not because she's trying to, because she's wired to. Think about it from a different angle for a second. You've probably met someone in your life, man or woman, doesn't matter, who just had this quality about them. Hard to describe. They weren't necessarily the loudest person, weren't trying to impress anyone. But when they spoke, you listened. When they seemed comfortable, you felt comfortable. Something about their presence just settled the room a little. That's not charisma in the Hollywood sense. That's not confidence as a performance. That's someone who isn't outsourcing their sense of self to the people around them. And women, especially in the context of attraction, are extraordinarily sensitive to this. Because connection, for a woman, isn't just emotional. It's about feeling safe. Not safe in the obvious physical sense. Safe in a deeper way. Safe to be herself. Safe to stop performing. Safe to let her guard down without worrying that the person across from her is going to need something from her emotionally that she didn't sign up to give. When a man is quietly seeking validation, even subtly, even unconsciously, it puts a woman in an invisible role she didn't ask for. Suddenly, she's managing his feelings without either of them realizing it. And that feeling, even if she can't name it, it's exhausting. It creates distance. And here's the part that stings a little. The harder he tries after that, the worse it tends to get. Because effort, when it comes from anxiety, doesn't feel like care. It feels like pressure. This isn't about being cold. It's not about pretending you don't care or playing some kind of game where you act indifferent. That's not it at all. It's about something much quieter than that. It's about being genuinely okay, in your own skin, in the moment, regardless of how she responds. That's what creates the kind of presence that draws someone in. And there are specific moments, specific situations that come up in almost every relationship, every early connection, where this plays out in ways most men never notice. That's what we're going to get into now. Let's talk about the first moment. And this one happens early. Sometimes on the very first date, sometimes in the first few weeks of knowing someone. It's the moment of silence. Not awkward silence necessarily, just a pause. A gap in the conversation where nobody's saying anything. Could be 30 seconds, could be less, but it's there. And watch what most men do in that moment. They fill it, immediately. A question, a joke, a story that doesn't quite connect to what was just being talked about. Anything to keep the conversation moving. Anything to make sure she doesn't get bored. Anything to make sure he doesn't look like he's running out of things to say. And she notices. Not in a judgmental way, necessarily, but something registers. Some small signal that says, he's uncomfortable right now. He needs this to keep going. Here's what that silence actually is, though. It's a test. Not one she's consciously running, but her nervous system is paying attention. Is this person okay just being here? Or do they need constant stimulation, constant performance, constant reassurance that things are going well? Because if a man can't sit in a moment of quiet without panicking, what does that say about how he'll handle the harder moments? The real ones. Picture this. It's a Tuesday evening. First real date, not just coffee, an actual dinner. Things have been good. Conversation flowed for the first hour. But now there's a pause. She's looking out the window for a second, just thinking. He feels it coming, that gap, and his brain starts moving. What do I say? What do I say? Should I ask about her job again? Should I make a joke? Did I already tell that story? And he jumps in, fills the space, says something fine, something normal. She smiles politely and responds. But something shifted. She felt the scramble, even if she couldn't see it. And without knowing why, she feels slightly less relaxed than she did 5 minutes ago. Now picture the same moment, different man. Same pause, same quiet. He notices it too, but he doesn't reach for anything. He just sits there, comfortable. Maybe takes a slow sip of his drink. Maybe looks out the window with her for a second. And then, naturally, without urgency, says something. Not to fill the space, just because it occurred to him. That's it. That's the whole difference. But what she felt in that second version is completely different. She felt like she could breathe, like she didn't have to perform either, like the silence wasn't a problem to solve. And that feeling, that ease, that's the beginning of real connection. What to actually do here isn't complicated. You don't need a technique. You just need to let the silence exist without treating it like an emergency. Let it sit. Trust that the conversation will continue when it's ready to, because it will. And if it doesn't, if the date just quietly runs out of momentum, that's okay too. Not every conversation needs to be rescued. But here's where things get more interesting. Because silence is just one moment. There's another situation that comes up, usually a little later, once there's already something real between two people that matters even more. And most men handle it in a way that quietly unravels everything they've built. It's the moment she pulls back. Not in a dramatic way, not a fight, not a serious conversation. Just, she seems a little more distant than usual. Replies take a little longer. She's less warm, less engaged, less present than she was last week. And what does a man typically do in that moment? He leans in harder. More messages, more plans, more effort, more checking in. Sometimes more vulnerability, opening up, sharing more, hoping that closeness will close the gap. And it almost never works. Because what she's doing, whether she knows it or not, isn't a signal that she needs more from him. It's often just her own life, her own stress, her own need for space that has nothing to do with him. But his reaction to it? The way he responds to that small withdrawal? That tells her everything. If he chases it, if he gets anxious, if he reaches for reassurance, if his energy shifts noticeably the moment she's less available, she feels that weight. And it changes how she sees him. Not because she's playing games, but because a man who destabilizes when she's simply having a quiet week is a man who is, on some level, relying on her to regulate his sense of self. And that's a fragile foundation. What to do instead is genuinely simple, even if it's not easy. Stay steady. Keep living your life. Don't shrink, don't overcompensate, don't perform indifference either. Just keep being the same person you were when things felt good. Because when she comes back, and usually she does, and finds you exactly where she left you, unbothered, grounded, just yourself, that's the moment something deepens. That's the moment she realizes, quietly, without overthinking it, that this person doesn't need her in the way that creates pressure. He just genuinely wants her around. And that difference, need versus want, is felt at a level most people never consciously examine. There's a third moment, and this one is the deepest one. It doesn't happen on dates. It doesn't happen in those early weeks when everything still feels a little careful, a little curated. It happens later, when the novelty has settled and what's left is just the two of you in ordinary life. It's the moment she shares something real, not something dramatic, not a crisis, just something genuine, a worry she's been carrying, a frustration about something that feels small but isn't, a quiet sadness about something she hasn't told many people. And she's not necessarily asking for advice. She's not asking him to fix it. She's just saying it, putting it out there, seeing what he does with it. And here's where most men, good men, caring men, men who genuinely want to be there for her, get it completely wrong. They try to help, immediately. A solution, a reframe, a silver lining, well, have you thought about? And it comes from a real place. It comes from caring, from wanting her to feel better, from feeling slightly uncomfortable sitting with her discomfort and not doing something about it. But what she needed in that moment wasn't a solution. She needed to feel like what she said landed somewhere, like it mattered, like he received it, fully, without immediately trying to move past it. Let me paint this for you. It's a Sunday afternoon. They've been together a few months. She's sitting on the couch, phone in her lap, and she says, almost casually, that she's been feeling kind of invisible at work lately. Like no matter what she does, it doesn't seem to get noticed. She laughs a little when she says it, the way people do when they're downplaying something that actually hurts. Version 1. He shifts toward her, already thinking, have you talked to your manager about it? Because you really should advocate for yourself more. You do so much, and people don't see it unless you make them. He means every word. He's trying to help. He thinks he's being supportive. She nods, says, yeah, maybe. changes the subject. And inside, something closes just a little. Not because he said anything wrong, but because she didn't feel heard. She felt processed, like her feelings were a problem he was trying to efficiently resolve so they could move on. Version 2, same moment. She says the same thing, same little laugh at the end. He just looks at her for a second, doesn't rush to fill it, then quietly says, "That sounds really lonely, actually." That's it. 3 seconds of silence, followed by 4 words, and something in her chest loosens. Because he didn't try to fix it. He just named what it actually was. He sat in it with her instead of reaching for the exit. She talks for another 20 minutes, things she hadn't even fully worked out for herself yet. And at the end of it, she feels not fixed, not advised, not guided, just understood. That feeling? That is connection. Not the grand gestures, not the perfect dates, not the right words at the right time. It's the moment someone feels like they don't have to translate themselves for you, like you're actually receiving them, not just waiting for your turn to respond. And here's the emotional peak of everything we've been building toward. Most men spend years, sometimes their whole lives, trying to earn connection, through effort, through being useful, through solving and providing and showing up in ways that can be measured and seen. And it's not wrong to do those things, but connection isn't earned, it's created. It happens in the space between two people when neither of them is performing, when there's enough safety, enough genuine ease, that something real can actually move between them. And the thing that creates that safety isn't your resume. It isn't your achievements or your plans or how well you listen technically. It's your presence, your actual, unguarded, unoptimized presence. The version of you that exists when you're not trying to be impressive, when you're not managing how you're coming across, when you're just there, noticing things, feeling things, responding to what's actually happening instead of what you think should be happening. That version of you is more magnetic than any version you could construct. And here's what I think is the hardest part of all of this. Most men don't withhold that version of themselves because they're afraid of women. They withhold it because somewhere along the way, they learned that needing things, feeling things, showing uncertainty was weakness. That the right move was always to have it together, to be the stable one, to not take up emotional space. And so they show up to connection with half of themselves. Capable, competent, present in all the practical ways, but quietly, almost invisibly, absent in the one way that actually matters. She can feel that absence, even when she can't name it, even when everything looks fine from the outside. There's something just slightly out of reach, and she spends months sometimes trying to figure out what it is. Sometimes she leaves before she figures it out. Sometimes she stays, and the distance just becomes the shape of the relationship. But every now and then, when a man actually lets himself be fully there, something happens that neither of them was quite expecting. She stops searching for the thing that's missing, because it isn't missing anymore. So let's come back to Daniel, the guy I mentioned at the beginning, the one who did everything right and still lost her. If I could go back and tell him one thing, not a technique, not a strategy, just one honest thing, it would be this. She didn't leave because you weren't enough. She left because she never got to meet you. The real you. The one underneath all the effort. The one that exists when you're not trying to be what you think someone needs. She got the curated version, the careful version. The version that was working very hard to make sure things went well. And that version, as good as it was exhausting to be close to. Not because he was a bad person, but because there was this invisible wall of effort between them that never came down. And she kept waiting, maybe without even knowing she was waiting, for the moment it would. It never did. And I think a lot of men reading this will recognize something in that story. Maybe not the exact details, but that feeling of trying hard and still coming up short, of doing what you thought you were supposed to do and watching it not work anyway. Here's what I want you to take from this video. Connection isn't a performance you give someone. It's something that happens when you stop performing. It lives in the silences you don't rush to fill, in the moments you stay steady when she pulls back, in the 4 words you say instead of the 12-step solution, in the version of yourself that shows up without armor, without agenda, without needing the moment to go a certain way. That's what she's looking for. Not the perfect man, not the man who always knows what to say. The man who is actually, genuinely, uncomplicatedly there. And here's the reframe I want to leave you with. The thing that I hope actually shifts something when you sit with it. You've probably spent a long time thinking about what women want, what they respond to, what attracts them, what keeps them interested. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to understand that. But the question underneath all of that, the one that actually matters, isn't, what does she want? It's, who are you when nobody's watching? Because that person, that unguarded, unoptimized, genuinely present version of you, is the one that creates real connection. Not occasionally, consistently. And the work isn't learning new techniques. The work is unlearning the habit of hiding. That's it. That's the whole thing. It sounds simple, and in a way it is. But simple doesn't mean easy. Because most of us have been hiding in one way or another for a long time. And letting that go. Actually letting it go. Not just intellectually agreeing with the idea. That takes something real. It takes deciding that being seen is worth the risk of being seen. Most men will hear everything in this video and nod along, maybe share it, maybe think about it for a day or two, and then quietly go back to the same patterns, the same effort, the same careful, constructed version of themselves, because change is uncomfortable, and the old way feels safer, even when it isn't working. But a few men, and maybe you're one of them, will hear this and actually feel something shift. Not dramatically, just a quiet recognition, a small internal click of something falling into place. Those are the men who show up differently the next time it matters. Not perfectly, but honestly. And honestly is all it ever needed to be. If this video reached something in you, if something here landed in a way you weren't quite expecting, subscribe. Not because of the algorithm, not because of some giveaway, but because this channel exists for the men who are actually willing to look at themselves honestly, who want to understand people, really understand them, not just get better at performing around them. That's who this is for. And if that's you, there's a lot more where this came from.